tonight. First order is to call the meeting to order. 5:33, calling meeting to order. Pretty light agenda for today. First ceremonial item actually is to call, or to add a new member to the TCC. So Sarah Siedschlag, the newest member to the TCC, and will be taking the oath today.
So I, Sarah Siedschlag, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter as a member of the Transportation and Circulation Committee for a term starting July 2022 and ending December 31st, 2024 of the City of Santa Barbara, California, according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right.
And then we'll do the official roll call from here.
Introductions?
We'll do the, hi, this is Jessica Grant, Supervising Transportation Planner. Liz, if you could help us with the roll call, and then we'll go into introductions.
Andres Malavas,
Present.
Hillary Blackerby,
Here.
Kathleen Rodriguez,
Here.
Susan Horn,
Here.
Sarah Siedschlag,
Here.
and Eve Sanford is absent.
Okay, so one thing that we want to do is a round of introductions with a new committee member, and just also for everyone's knowledge of how we all found ourselves here. So I'll lead ourselves off. My name is Andres Malavos. I've been with the committee since December 2018. I spent in college and a number of years after, spent a lot of time on a road bike riding around the city, and so became acutely aware of infrastructure projects and majored in government in school, so always kind of had an interest in public works and all the moving pieces that it takes to make these type of projects happen. And then also, you know, with a couple run-ins with cars, you get very, very sensitive to the safety of the road, just the shared use of roads. And this was a great opportunity to participate and just help make this city a little bit more bike friendly, and although it is very much so already. And so this was just my way to get involved. So I guess maybe we'll go down all the way to Sarah and then work back.
So my name's Sarah. Yes, I am new, obviously new to the committee. In my daytime work, I work at UCSB as the Environmental Programs Advisor for the Associated Students Student Government. And so I advise some of the student groups, Environmental Affairs Board, Coastal Fund, and most notably for this work, the Student Bike Committee, which oversees the bike infrastructure at UCSB, which is, I think as most people know, a massive, many miles of dedicated bike paths, tens of thousands of student bike riders on campus and in Isla Vista. So I've done a lot with bike infrastructure, what works for encouraging bike use on an institutional level. I also am a regular MTD bus rider. I take the bus to and from campus and around town. We are a one-car household, so we're using bus, bike, other non-car transportation as much as possible. So, thank you.
Susan Horn, and my background and degrees are in education and health, and I was in my jobs in public health in the 30 years of working in public health for Medi-Cal and then for the county public health department. My job at the county was on nutrition and exercise, and so to see those are the building blocks of all our health. So it seemed like this was a great opportunity. I was involved with some other organizations around health, and Some of the jobs I had were working with government, with the schools, Safe Routes to Schools, getting grants for that to improve safety on different roads around schools. And I remember one, it took 6 years to get the project completed because it was 3 separate grant proposals to the state around La Cumbre Junior High to get that intersection there to be safer. And so I was well acquainted with what government was doing and very impressed with their work. So was glad to join the Transportation Committee to learn more and to help facilitate safety on the roads.
Hi, I'm Hillary Blackerby, and I've been on the committee, I think this is my 12th year somehow. Don't really know how that happened, but here we are. And I, in my day job, work at MTD as the planning and marketing manager, but I'm a multimodal sort, like you, Sarah. I get around all kinds of ways, and it's always just been endlessly fascinating. Super good way to learn about all the things by being on this committee of everything that's going on, and to work with the great staff that does such a good job to keep it all together and make it all happen and go get that grant money and everything. So, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I'm Kathleen Rodriguez, and my interest in this committee started when I was on a committee working with then Councilwoman Helene Schneider to develop it was the development of the 20-year plan for the city of Santa Barbara. So at that time it was new around the country, but we developed health objectives for the general plan. And now that has become, I think, fairly common around the country. So it was a natural fit for me. After we worked on that, I was all fired up because our goals included helping prevent diabetes, helping prevent hypertension, helping prevent obesity, and of course, traffic accidents. So all of those things are improved when people can walk and bike and move safely through the city and use their cars as little as possible. So with Helene's encouragement, I joined this committee, and I have never left. So I enjoy it very much. And I'm retired now, but I have a master's in public health in health education, and worked as a clinical administrator throughout different agencies in Santa Barbara for about 25 years. So I enjoy this committee very much, and like contributing to this process.
Great, thanks everyone. All right, so I guess the first question, Ms. Grant, is if there's any additions or changes to the agenda?
Chair Malovos, there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, and then first opportunity for public comment. All right, no opportunity, okay. So, coming this fall, so.
Chair Malovos, since there isn't any members of the public wishing to not speak on any items outside of what's on the agenda today, we can move into the next item of announcements. And that one is that for the first announcement that I have is the advisory board new member and returning member applications for members that are termed out is coming this fall. I believe we'll have timelines shortly, so I'll let the committee members know of our existing committee for members have to be termed out. But we encourage everybody to reapply, and while we do have term limits, City Council can waive that term limit as most of our existing members have exceeded their terms. But again, we've appreciated the service, and for those members that may not be continuing on any recommendations, so we can continue to have a well-rounded board. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me if there's any suggestions for that. And again, once I have an actual date of the application deadline, I will reach back out to the committee.
Perfect.
I had a question about that. So there are 5 of us here, 1 missing, but there's another opening too. correct?
Yes,
Right,
that's
okay.
correct.
So that and then whoever's
Yes.
term is up. Okay, got it.
Yes. And I have one additional announcement to make. In the audience is Brian Bossy, and he is our new downtown team manager. So, and he will have a brief introduction a little bit later on in program updates as he will cover the State Street Promenade update. As you know, for background, with Rob Dayton, when he retired as our transportation planning and parking manager, that position was rebranded with really a whole focus on State Street, and the division was rebranded to a different name as well as I think it's the downtown team division. I always forget that, but even though we do transportation citywide, our division has a new name, but still under the Public Works umbrella. So, but we welcome Brian. I'll probably have him say a few introductory words, but he has been a long time city employee, working both in community development and most recently the waterfront departments. And we're very excited to still continue to have him as part of our city team. All right, and that is it for announcements.
Awesome. Thank you. I guess the next item is the approval of minutes from April 28th, which is attached in our reader. So I will make a motion to approve.
I can move to approve and
Second.
Okay.
And I'll abstain.
And then Chair Malovas, you can call everybody to a vote, and we can just do with the committee member, because this is just her first meeting, she's abstaining. But we don't have to do a roll call vote anymore now that we're in person. So you could just say those in favor of the motion. Then, you can do it voicing by aye or
Okay.
or nay.
All right. All in favor of approving the minutes from April 28th?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Yeah, it's very funny for as clunky as it was getting finally on Zoom meetings, now I find that we're clunky again getting back to in-person meetings. So I'll just chalk it up to always being a work in progress. And then Chairman Lovos, if you want to kick us off to the next item.
Okay, so that takes us to an update from the Safe Routes and School Program update, and recommendation that we take this update. So
Yes. So super exciting about this topic tonight about the Safe Routes to School program update is, to my knowledge, since I've been a part of the Public Works team, is we've never had this as an item on a Transportation Circulation Committee agenda. We've had lots of infrastructure related Safe Routes to School for the projects, but we haven't really showcased the Safe Routes to School program, which is a part of our budget, and we have Sam Furtner, our mobility coordinator, that will be kicking us off for the introduction. And then we have also, as part 2 of the presentation, is Kim Stanley Zimmerman, who is part of SB Bike Coast, and she is the lead, I will not get the full title right, but basically the head of all the education programming behind this very wonderful program. So just informational update tonight, but again, love to hear questions and comments after the presentation.
Thank you, Jessica. Good evening, Chair Malavos and committee members. Sam Furtner, Mobility Coordinator with the city's Public Works Department. And it is time for us to have a touch point at the community level about some of the non-infrastructure components to our Safe Routes to School program. And I'm glad we did introductions again tonight because it's a good reminder how invested in the community some of our committee members are and have been in the past. And there's a lot of history around the Safe Routes to School program on this board. So glad to be here for that. So our Safe Routes to School program has been operational in the city for over 20 years. And given that, we thought it was time to report out on not project-specific programming, but more some of the soft skills that come along with our Safe Routes to School program here in the city. Through the years, a lot of our local policies have guided the creation and ultimately the evolution of the Safe Routes to School program here in the city. And really, the goal of all these policies, from the circulation element through the pedestrian master plan and the bike master plan, as well as the recently adopted Vision Zero strategy back in 2018, are to provide and enhance safe routes for our school children to get to school using active transportation means here in the city. And with these policies and this guidance, we have developed a robust Safe Routes to School program that continues to evolve through the years. As I mentioned, the Safe Routes to School actually started here in Santa Barbara as a plan. It was a Caltrans grant application way back in 1999 that was successful to go forth and develop a plan to ultimately implement a Safe Routes to School project here in Santa Barbara. At the time, in the early 2000s, city staff worked with the county staff as well as members from the Santa Barbara Bicycle Coalition and a PTA safety committee to develop a program that was then administered by city and county staff. In 2002, with the desire to create a little bit more of a grassroots feel to some of that programming, management was shifted to COAST, which is the Coalition for Sustainable Transportation. Kim, you might appreciate this, but that's a very old logo from one of our early Safe Routes to School contracts. And really the intent here was to remove some of the government feel and to have a better community touch point with schools and with kids in the program. And we found that to be very effective. COAST worked with 22 partner agencies to implement the Safe Routes to School program, and as the program took off and developed in 2006, 2007, they started asking for additional funding by the jurisdictions that were participating in the program in the South County, based on the number of schools in each. So early 2000s, again, it transfers to COAST, and then mid-2000s, City of Santa Barbara, City of Carpinteria, City of Goleta, and the County of Santa Barbara start to contribute on a per-school basis. So right now, the city does a lot of the more hard infrastructure engineering approach to Safe Routes to Schools. That's more project-specific. But SB Bike Plus Coast manages the education and the outreach, and as well as the evaluation components of the program, all the way from kindergarten up through high school. They do this in 17 Santa Barbara schools, and they do it throughout the South Coast as well. And I'd just like to point out on this slide that SP Bike Plus Coast's Safe Routes to School program is funded by partially through Measure A South Coast grants, and then additionally, as I mentioned, through the per school funding from the cities of Santa Barbara, Goleta, Carpinteria, and the county. Up until last year, our per school contribution was about $1,000 per school. Given operational costs, given the need to develop the program, and given the fact that all of our other jurisdictional partners were contributing more, we bumped our contribution this year to be more in line and more commensurate with what the other jurisdictions are contributing per school. So right now, as I mentioned, with 17 Santa Barbara schools, we're currently contributing about $1,700 per school for Safe Routes to School programming here. So SP Bike Plus Coast continue to provide robust Safe Routes to School education through the South County. And at this time, I'd like to present Kim Stanley Zimmerman, who is the Senior Program Manager of Education and Encouragement at SP Bike Plus Coast, to tell you a little bit more about their education and evaluation and encouragement campaigns through the Safe Routes to School program.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Jessica, for the invitation to be here. Chair Malavos and committee members. Thank you for having me. Happy to share the program with you. So you're hearing it tonight. We are no longer SB Bike and Coast or the Santa Barbara Bicycle Coalition and the Coalition for Sustainable Transportation. We are now Move Santa Barbara County.
Oh.
Woohoo! Our mission is to promote walking, bicycling, and public transit county-wide to create healthy, sustainable, and equitable communities. I'll be speaking today primarily about the Safe Routes to School program. Why is there this movement? Because you can see the difference in the chart. In 1969, about 50% of families used to walk and bike to school. It was a very typical thing for a way for kids to travel and get to school. And this chart, it's pretty old, from 2009, but it's showing the exact opposite now. So 50% of kids are being driven to school on average, and very few walking and biking to school. And it just seems like such the obvious thing for mental and physical health for our kids that they should be walking and biking to school. So this is our challenge, is to reverse this chart. We base our program on the 6 E's, like lots of other programs: engagement, equity, engineering, encouragement, education, and evaluation. We start the process off by discussing with school administrators, parents, teachers, kids, about the barriers that prevent parents from allowing their children to walk and bike to school. We really want to hear from the schools, like, what is preventing you from being able to feel like you can walk and bike to school? And so we get feedback, and then we base our program at that school based on the feedback we've got from the community. This was last year's assessment at Hope School and at Santa Barbara Junior High. So we're discussing things like, are the crosswalks visible? Are the ADA ramps in the right place? Is there access to biking? So we also talk about, is there safe access to schools for transit users, students walking and biking? I think oftentimes our schools are just like our streets. We're thinking about moving cars, but we want to make sure that we're safely allowing safe spaces for kids who are using other modes of transportation when they get to school. So, and it's not just adequate, but it is safe and comfortable infrastructure. And then, of course, trying to figure out how we can engage with the whole school community. Is the program equitable? Are we hearing from everybody at the schools about their concerns? So in our engagement with the schools, we're sharing a presentation with the schools, and this is one of the slides. And we ask the parents and the administrators who are there, how many crosswalks do you see at this intersection? Anybody want to show me their fingers and tell me how many you think there are? All right. So most of you who raised your hands are correct. There are 4 crosswalks at this intersection. They are not marked crosswalks, but they exist. So there are the crosswalks, and the appropriate way to respond to intersections and crosswalks, whether they're marked or not, is to check for pedestrians and make sure that you stop for them and allow them to cross the street. So we do parent engagement too. We want parents to be, when we work with enforcement agencies, they often say, well, we're ticketing the parents. So we want to, when we're talking with parents, remind them about things like the 20 is Plenty campaign. Slow down, stay off your phones, stop for pedestrians, things like that. So we're doing as much parent education as we can, as well as student education. We provide low-cost helmet and bike light set distributions at all the schools that we work in. So we want people to have access to affordable helmets and lights to keep kids safe when they're riding their bicycles. And those are pictures of, we try to invite volunteers to our helmet distributions, so it's not so dependent on our instructors. It's a really good way for parents to be able to engage with the rest of their community, and we also have community members who volunteer. So lots of volunteer opportunities. So if any of you ever want to come out to a Safe Routes to School event, you are welcome and appreciated. We also teach proper bike function and proper helmet fit at every bike class that we provide. So on the left, you'll see the slide is a volunteer at our United Way Fun in the Sun program over the summer. We did some programming for United Way in the schools. This is at Franklin School, and he's teaching the kids how their gears work. Because when you're teaching a class and kids are going on their gears and they're not pedaling their pedals, one of the first things we want to teach them is you must be pedaling in order to switch your gears. So it's really nice to have a mechanic there describing to the kids some bike knowledge. And then, of course, we want kids to know how to properly fit their own helmets on their heads so that they're not reliant on their parents or another adult to be able to do that for them. And these are just a couple of examples of bike courses that we set up at the schools. The left is a bike rodeo. So it's set up like a little mini city. There's stop signs, and kids have to learn who goes first and who's got the right of way. And there's cars backing up out of the driveway that they have to pay attention for, and car doors opening into their path. So all these things that we might find in a cityscape of riding our bicycles. And then we also teach just, straight skills. How to signal your turn, how to maintain control of your bicycle, things like that, learning the traffic rules. And it's it's educational but super fun at the same time. Kids love it. We also teach a lot of kids how to ride a bike for the first time. So the photograph on the left is a 6th grader at Franklin School helping a 3rd grader learn how to ride a bicycle. So the PE teacher at Franklin School invited 6th graders to help him with his program. And we thought that was a great idea. And the slide on the right is a Move Santa Barbara County volunteer working with another learner at Monte Vista School. And these are the faces of kids who are learning or who have learned how to ride a bike. We are not only bike-centered, we do a lot of pedestrian safety for young children. In K through 3, it's primarily a lot of pedestrian safety. So these photographs here, the kids in the vests are 2nd graders. So we give them a safety presentation in their classroom, and then we go for a walk to practice what we've just learned. And we practice things like stopping and looking both ways, being in the crosswalk, being cautious at driveways, making sure they're checking the driveways, especially with those big hedges that block their view at the driveway. And then the middle slide is of 1st graders. Vanessa, our instructor, is talking about stopping at the edge before you cross the street. We also do bike summer camps. They're intended for youth ages 10 to 14 years old. And we take them all around the city of Santa Barbara. We visit the Mission, we visit SBCC, the zoo, the beach. So lots of destinations where youth want to go. So it's a really great experience. We do skills on the blacktop for the first part of the day, and then we ride every day, and the camp is 5 days, 3 hours a day. And love people to join us on those rides. As part of our or encouragement program at the schools, there are 2 national days: National Walk to School Day, which is always the first Wednesday in October, and Bike to School Day, always the first Wednesday in May. So we've had such huge success with those programs, and they're intended really to give people the experience of doing it for one time, and then giving, just informing people, oh, that was actually kind of fun. And it's quality time with my child, and we're getting out and we see our neighbors, getting a little exercise before we go to school. So we definitely promote those 2 national events, but we are encouraging more and more schools to do regular walk and bike to school days, weekly and monthly, and some of us have taken us up on that. So that's the Safe Routes to School program, and then just this slide, just to let you know, we do adult education classes only, and they're these 6 kind of focused classes. We have one coming up in September called Confident City Cycling. So please, when you talk to people in your networks, let them know that we have classes for adults as well. And we've had a lot of interest in our e-bike skills classes lately. So want to point out that one in particular. And then I just wanted to end with quotes from kids and a mom. And I wasn't planning on reading it, but I think since we're being recorded, maybe I should read them. Okay, so this is from a kiddo at summer camp this year. Actually, it was a United Way kiddo at Franklin School who said, "I've been going on bike rides with my family," which is what we want. We don't just want kids walking and biking to school. We want them biking and walking to whatever destination they're going to. And another kiddo said, "I've never ridden on the street before. That was exciting." And our mom, regarding a summer camp this summer, said, "Our son had a really great time at your camp. He came home every day enthusiastic to share all that he learned. You really have a fantastic program, and his confidence has grown tremendously." And I just loved that quote because you get more confidence when you bike with people and when you know how to do things properly, when you know how to interact with traffic. So really loved that quote for that aspect of it. And that's what I have to share with you. I'd be happy to entertain any questions if you have any.
First off, thank you for that. It was wonderful to see an overview of all the things you do in the school and also the adult programs. Big question though, you mentioned some of the e-bike classes are gaining popularity. Is the kind of introduction or increase in e-bikes starting a thing in the school that you're seeing? And is that increasing? How many kids are riding to school on 2 wheels?
Definitely, yeah, kids are definitely riding their e-bikes to school. So, one Washington school last year, the 6th grade teacher asked me if we would come and give a presentation to her students specifically because they were riding, she noticed that they were riding to school more regularly. So yes, definitely more kids are getting to school via e-bike, and we want to make sure that they are being responsible and arriving safely themselves.
That's good to hear. That's super important.
Thank you. I had a couple questions. Actually, I was curious, and I think this top quote kind of touches on it, going on bike rides with their family, and you mentioned in your bike camp doing trips to the zoo. And so I'm wondering about, yeah, the spillover effect of students then riding around on weekends with their friends and learning about maybe the local bike path systems, and how much do you think you might be, like, you know, teaching a group of high school kids how to get to the beach on the weekends? And do you feel like that's happening too? Or?
I hope so. We don't really have an evaluative tool that tells us, that gives us that information, but we do our best to not limit our conversations with kids to schools. We talk about, you know, biking or walking to soccer practice or to your grandmother's home or things like that. So we try to get it, we try to get them thinking in those directions. And I think our bike summer camps are definitely do that specifically. We try to get them to lots of different places in the city so that they know they can get there by bike. We also are trying to do bike trains to schools. So I think that when an instructor leads kids and gives them teaching points for how to safely ride their bike to school, I think those teaching points will definitely spill over into other ways that they are riding their bikes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm just interested, I remember from when I was working on Safe Routes to School that one of the things that we did every year at the school I worked with was ask the parents and the students what were the dangerous places, where did they feel unsafe? And then out of that came, you know, here's what parents are saying, you know, this gives evidence for, you know, working on a project like that. So is that still happening? Are you still making recommendations to the city about what improvements can be made around school safety?
Absolutely, yeah.
Intersections and things?
Yes. So all the conversations that we're having discuss the 6 E's with parents and PTAs and other parent groups that we can talk with. And we're saying, okay, give us, you know, tell us about tricky intersections, and if they have a specific area that they really want us to look at, then we can invite public works departments and law enforcement agencies to join us on a walk like I showed you in one of those slides. But those discussions about barriers that prevent parents from allowing their children to walk and bike to school are definitely we are citing specific locations and sharing that information. Yeah.
And that's, and to add to that too, that's something that we work with, I'm gonna say Move SB, I'm trying to get that into the vocabulary now. About, because the contracts are yearly, and so that's something that we have a running tally for, of when was the last safety assessment done at a particular school, to make sure that we have current safety assessments. And I apologize for my phone. And that, yes, we try to have one of our staff and our traffic engineer present for a lot of those meetings, and again, we try to do on the ground, on site, going through each of the areas of concern.
Would you say your name again? I didn't.
It's Kim Stanley Zimmerman.
Thank you. And I see here there is that one slide where you had the email and so forth, if we wanted more information about the programs.
Please, yes.
But it says it's Diane.
Diana LaRiva is the woman who teaches our adult education classes.
And you are Kim Stanley
Zimmerman.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Just we didn't find it anywhere. I have probably, I don't know, this might be a real global question, but I'm going to put it out there. I've been quite troubled by seeing so many young kids, 12, 13, 14, 15, on e-bikes. And, we make people get licenses to ride motorcycles, and it feels like there's this giant gap right now. And I think it'll probably evolve, but it's very troublesome. And I know there was a interesting comment by the Angry Poodle about the young people driving down the middle of State Street, careening around baby strollers. So, these are very difficult issues, but I'm really happy to see that you're doing some classes, especially in the schools. But what do you think about this huge growth of e-bikes and these kids? It's like, here's your e-bike for Christmas and your helmet by.
Yeah. Well, it's lovely to see any child on a bike. I love it that kids are getting around by bicycle. I've seen so many more, and adults too. They are great for getting us places that we need to get to that might be too far. Do we need some education? Absolutely. We'd like to work on that. Should we require classes? I'd like to start with education first and see if we can reach those kids and do some specific classes in the schools before we start requiring permits or, certification that you can ride an e-bike. Lots of people are doing it well too. So I think education is the answer.
I don't know if this is in any of the programs, but as a pedestrian, my husband rides a bike a lot, but we're using the new multi-purpose path to Henry's Beach quite a bit because we live right there along that path. And most bikes don't have any sort of bell on them, like tricycles do, but people will come right up behind us and kind of flying around us, and you don't know they're coming. I would really love it if there was some sort of something out there to encourage bicyclists to have a bell. Or the ones that holler on your left, it's so great. But the more that path gets used, I see very few bicycles on Las Positas Road. It's going fast. So even the active bicycles are staying on the multi-use path. So I don't know. I just think, if we have opportunities for education, if that, just running that up the flagpole, that I think having some sort of signaling system that people are advised to use would be really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. We do teach the kids that. We practice, riding in a single file line, and the person in the back has to tell all 10 of those kids in front of them, passing on your left, passing on your left, and everybody's got to do it. And then we also tell kids whose parents still want them to be biking on the sidewalk also, make sure you are riding slowly and that you inform the pedestrian that you are going to pass them. So we do educate them at every opportunity that we have to do that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, pleasure.
I wonder if giving out bells with the lights and the helmets
I
might
know,
be a
yeah.
good idea.
Yeah, I love that idea.
But teaching them how to use them too,
Yeah, we could have something like a little,
schools.
something that we pass out with the bell.
Yeah, but in the lessons too in the school.
Yeah,
It's a
we'll
good
definitely
idea.
take that back to
Yeah. Thanks, Kathy.
Santa Barbara County.
And I think I would say, I think kind of a key point here, and I think what your program really emphasizes that's really, I think, addresses some of these issues is that you focus on biking as commuting, where a lot of, you buy a bike in the US, it's typically kind of from this recreation perspective, so it doesn't come with a bike and a lock and lights, and those are all things you add on. And so by emphasizing biking as a way to commute, you inherently are kind of bringing in those, like, this is how you pass on a road, and signaling and all of those things. So I think that's what's really great about this program compared to just teaching kids how to pedal and stop and brake and fix bikes.
Definitely, yeah, thank you, yeah.
This is my pet peeve. Always have to bring this up is there's no place to park and lock your bike safely in so many places. And so, going to the grocery store or, doing errands or commuting here and there, if there's no place to lock your bike safely, people are not going to do it.
Yeah,
And that was
it's a barrier.
huge barrier for me.
Yeah,
And I don't see that happening around town, is that there just aren't places to park the
Yeah.
bike
Yep.
safely.
yes. I think that's a
For
big.
kids too.
I think that's a big issue. At the schools, we definitely take a look at the bike racks and assess how accessible they are and in what shape they are and things like that. But the city of Santa Barbara definitely needs more bike parking.
Oh, one question. On your slide on just the percentages of people walking or biking 1969, 2009, is that nationwide or is that Santa Barbara data or
Nationwide.
nationwide? And then just curiosity we have pretty favorable weather, some terrain at some school in Monroe, for example, on and off the mesa, things like that. Like, where do Santa Barbara fall or lie in terms of rates of kids cycling to school compared to other like cities or within the state or nationwide?
I don't know the answer to that question. We do mobility counts at the schools, so we have specific data for each school.
Okay.
The teachers do a survey at the beginning of the year, and it's just a simple question, how'd you get to school today? And it's walk, bike, bus, family vehicle, carpool, other. So we do have that data, but I don't know how it relates to trends nationally or even in other cities.
Got it.
Be
Thank you.
fun to take a look at.
It would be.
Yeah.
I can weigh in on that a little bit. So firstly, to clarify, the National Safe Routes to School organization did keep nationwide statistics that were reported to them by individual programs like Kim's program. And they actually stopped doing that last year. They lost funding, and that data source has gone away. Additionally, a challenge is that right now, the most reliant source that we have for bike commuting characteristics is actually from the American Community Survey, which is based on census population responses. And the only thing that they measure as far as commuting is whether somebody 16 or over is commuting to work. And if you think about in Santa Barbara, where the weather is beautiful, people ride recreationally, but to do errands and to go downtown to see a movie. And so we're not talking about like a spandex-clad bike ride up Gibraltar. We're talking about, transportation. And none of that is reflected in the statistics that we see. I will say that looking at ACS data, our percentage of people commuting by bike has steadily fallen and continues to fall. So it is something that we're looking at. Higher than the national average, but it is something that we could improve.
Out of curiosity, do you happen to know like when the high water mark was, or when did it start declining from?
Well, the data right now, it captures all the pre-pandemic information, so we don't have anything, because I think there was a big spike in biking, but then there was, again, as Sam was mentioning, it's just to work, so then we also had a spike in people telecommuting, so the statistic might still be thrown off. So the delay in getting that information is usually like 18 months to 2 years before we even get to see those trends on the every 5-year ECS periods. But yeah, something we continue to track, and as Sam mentioned, just to recognize the deficiencies in reporting, that it's not really showing the true picture. It is something that we're talking about at the regional level of how we could better showcase modes of travel.
Good to know. Thank you.
Just one more example that I'd like to throw out there is that in the transportation realm, when we look at a vehicle trip, we say that this was a vehicle mile traveled. We don't say, well, he was going to the gym, so we're not going to count that one. That's a recreational drive. So there is interest in moving more towards that and looking at biking, because at the end of the day, is it really relevant if it was a commuting trip or a transportation trip or a recreational bike ride?
Yeah, that's interesting to know that the data gets segmented in that way, and it's not all a direct comparison to other modes of transportation. Thank you.
I have one other thing on data, which is, for a number of years, SB Bike and Coast did the annual bike count. I'm not sure what they called it, but I participated in that one year, where the volunteers all over this whole city, and everybody was assigned to a different intersection or corner or whatever, and counted for like 2 hours or 4 hours or something, every bike that went by. And I just wondered if that is ever on anybody's dream list to do again. It's a huge project.
Can add to it. That's a great question. I think part of it is that there is a call out in sort of subjectivity, or the count, if was it being done because you introduce a human element. We are looking at ways for cameras now to capture riders, but you still have a human. At some point, you need on the tapes to then physically count, but that's something that we're trying to move forward on that. And then also spatially, if you want to add to this, Mr. Furtner, but it's also looking at other ways to track via like cell phones and mobility for ridership that way, to see some analysis of, again, of where people are riding. And at least one thing with our public bike share system, because those all have GPS, we could kind of have an idea of those riders, to give us a little snapshot. Is there anything else to add on that?
I would just add that our traffic engineer does do intersection counts, and technology has evolved in that we can put a camera at an intersection and get a snapshot in time, on a Thursday afternoon, for example, of turning movements, so where vehicles are going at the intersection, straight, right, left, etc., and then also counting bicycle movements and pedestrian movements. And we use that data internally when looking at design components on a regular basis. So in the background, it's happening, and I think something that we're talking about at a staff level is a way to consider making it more public. As an example, the city of Ventura has a number of bike counters that are in the field and actually display how many people have ridden on that trail or that path in the course of a day, a week, a month, a year, etc. So again, finding relevancy for those numbers is really what's important. And we've talked about, a good location for a bike counter in Santa Barbara could be the Las Positas multi-use path, just to highlight, and almost more for people that don't use that facility, that it is being used and enjoyed, because that's part of our challenge. When you ride on that path, it's a really unique experience, but when you drive by it in a car, it's relatively unremarkable.
So when you said that you have the capacity to do the cameras and see all the things that happen at an intersection, how many times and everything, is that used when there's a project in process, either being considered or working on? But it's not something that happens like all the time. It's just
Correct, yes.
It's used strategically, right?
It's used strategically, and we often, especially for our active transportation program grants, need before project counts as well as after project counts to kind of discern if there's been a benefit to the project.
Thank you.
One other thing, from a project's perspective, it's the video is really handy because just to see certain lines of movement for cyclists, and because we have all varying ages and abilities, and so that's what something we're in the field lots of times over the course through the design of our project, but we might not pick up everything, and so that could help us capture, or maybe nighttime movements, et cetera.
Yeah, I remember when I was sitting on this corner counting, there was a number of bike riders who would come over, and they'd come to this super busy intersection, and they would cross over and go into the parking lot of the gas station. You know, it was like a big, long, dangerous thing, and I just couldn't believe it. It was so dangerous. But that, I don't know if that would be picked up by the camera, certainly.
Any other additional questions?
And then, Chairman Lovos, if you could, for public comment, there's still people that could potentially be remote in.
Okay, so is there any request for public comment waiting?
There's no public comment at this time.
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say just an appreciation for Kim Stanley Zimmerman's work. I've known her for years, and she is really a celebrity at schools, and a lot of the staff too. And I know that, yeah, as my children have continue to go through our school district system, there's always the, oh, wow, so-and-so is here, and just the excitement that they provide and service. And I also say, too, again, for the synergies with us and how important we like in our dialogue to know when summer camps are or when there's school rides, because we like to participate too, because you know really quickly if our facilities are working or not. And part of like the active transportation program grant for the State Street undercrossing project, for example, I was out on a ride with the kids going into junior high, and how maybe for confident riders, that's a easier underpass to do. But when you have more newer riders on our roadway network, how scary it can be. And, of course, that project's coming online. It will have buffered lanes to, again, have extra layer of protection. But and then again, with because they are daily riding with all ages and abilities too, when we're in design, we often bring out our advocacy members and riders. Does this, on a safe routes to school route, does this turn make sense, and certain things. So we're just really appreciative of their time and synergies. And they also help us with a lot of the grant preparation, and as Kim said, with all of the parents and kids and principal feedback, we have to document that all in order to get successful grant applications. And so a lot with their help has enabled us to have many successful grant applications. So they're very, just want to have a shout out for Kim and team for all the amazing work they do.
All right, great, thank you. So I guess it takes us to next, or program updates.
So I wanted to introduce, yes, Brian Bossy, our new downtown team manager. He'll say a couple things about how amazing he is. And then he'll give us an update on the State Street Promenade, where we're at, not only from the interim perspective, but in the master planning effort as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Grant. No, I won't be telling you anything amazing about myself. I can't think of anything off the top of my head anyway. So thank you, Jessica, for the warm welcome earlier. And to be honest, I'm the one that's actually honored to be here. I'm honored to work with Jessica and her staff at Transportation Planning. I'm honored to work with the folks at Downtown Parking. I have worked on the fringes and with both groups for the past almost 23 years while here at the city, so it's exciting to actually jump in with this very highly regarded team, and they're amazing folks. So I am the one who's honored. One of the main things we're working on now, and have been for quite some time, are the interim operations on State Street. And interim is an interesting choice of words for that description. We're already 2.5 years in, and we've likely got, well, Ms. Blackerby would know probably better than I, we've probably got another anywhere from 3 to 5 years left in that interim phase as things get moving with the master plan. And then once that's done, capital projects. So it's going to be a while. So we're very busy. One of the things we've been working on is ADA enforcement. That's obviously a big issue along the sidewalks, but also in the street itself, the public right-of-way. Our goal is to get 100% compliance. We have 44 businesses that have outdoor, expanded outdoor business facilities on State Street. And after our first round of enforcement, we found that 22 of those folks were not in compliance with ADA standards. So we work with them, we tell them what's wrong. As of yesterday, we had our second round of enforcement activity, and we're down to 11. So that's good, we keep having it. But again, our goal is 100% compliance. Of the 11 that remain non-compliant, my understanding from staff, they're very small things that can be fixed rather easily. So nothing major, it's just making tweaks on things to get down to 0 and fully in compliance. So that's where we're at with compliance. As far as interim operations, the City Council's State Street Interim Operations Ad Hoc Committee has been meeting. I can't think of any more words to put in that string, but they have been very active since Ms. Grant's presentation at the end of June. They've met 7 times, so they are really getting after a number of issues out on State Street. They're working with a variety of stakeholders to address design issues. If you recall, the city put out design guidelines, so nothing really to be enforced, just we'd like you to do this, and it's up to them if they want to do that or not. So they're looking at various design issues, in particular, making things that are now guidelines, a few select ones, requirements. And by doing that, really clean up the atmosphere, the general feel out there on State Street. They're also looking at parades and the future of parades on State Street. That's very closely related to portability. Are these outdoor facilities going to be portable or not? They're looking at safety issues, including bicycle safety and pedestrian safety on State Street. And they're also looking at usage fee. That wasn't something that was considered when we started this because nobody knew how long this was going to be around. So it is something we're looking into. And it looks like with a lot of these issues, it'll be back before the full City Council in late September to address a number of those. So a lot of movement on that front. And then lastly, so that's kind of the short-term interim. And then lastly, the State Street Master Plan. And Ms. Blackerby, feel free to jump in here. The city enlisted the help of MIG to help deliver that master plan. MIG is a very well-regarded, well-renowned group. So we're happy to have them. We're excited to have them. They've already started meeting with staff as well as City Council and a number of other stakeholders to kind of kick off the process. It's going to be very public outreach focused, especially the first 6 months to a year, if not more than that. So very public focused, seeking input from all groups. So please tell your friends and get them involved if possible. And that process is scheduled to take the whole process to actually get to an approved master plan anywhere from 16 to 18 months. So right now you're looking at December of 23 or February of 24. That's the goal. So that's kind of where we're at on State Street. That's a quick summary, but there's a whole lot more detail in there. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Hi and welcome. The interim, so what Mr. Rossi keeps referring to is that I'm on the State Street Advisory Committee. Right. But the interim stuff is like, from what I'm hearing from the public and in my own experience, and I'm pretty clued into this kind of thing, is super opaque and not, there's like not other than, noticing, like any other agenda for any other council meeting. There's not a lot of public outreach or input about it, and yet it's something that, like you said, is going to affect downtown for a long time. Obviously, there's business outreach happening. Great, obviously important. Those are the people with the extended business facilities, or whatever we call a parklet now. But I'm just curious, like, if, like, as we know, and in, I think, probably transportation, public works, more than any other department, if you don't do good public outreach, people will eat you up and hate whatever comes out of it, right? We've seen it. We've seen it happen time and again. Councils have turned over because of it, all these things. And so I'm just curious, from a staff perspective, how are you trying to, I know people are trying to move quickly, but how are you trying to kind of square the fact that at the end of the day, everybody's going to experience the facility? It's for everyone, not just the business owners. And so is there any sort of public outreach planned happening? Is it too late on all the interim steps? How long is that committee constituted for? Can you kind of fill us in on that?
Sure, Committee Member Blackerby, great questions. As you say, most of the, I think opaque is a good way to put it. And so what this ad hoc subcommittee has been attempting to do is put in more direction. At the meeting, Ms. Grant had a wonderful presentation, but as a lot of council members said, not a lot of decisions were made, and it was just kicked down the road. So this ad hoc subcommittee has been very active in getting more definitive in what things are going to happen moving forward. They're kind of looking at, as far as design, and working with businesses, more, if you will, low-hanging fruit that will improve design characteristics and just the overall look of the space. Great question on public outreach. Again, this is very much focused on the businesses out there, as well as relying on them, what their patrons are saying, how do they feel about the indoor-outdoor experience, do they want to keep the outdoor? Obviously, similar to cycling, we have this weather in Santa Barbara that's always nice. So everybody always wants to eat out. And so I think this COVID process has really made people realize, yeah, I want to be outside. Why aren't I outside? So it's really working from the public side, working through the businesses, working through the downtown organization and the chamber to bring the public into it. So a lot of these, again, interim. We will be working with Tess Harris and MIG, possibly on some other interim opportunities as they come forward. As far as one of the big things is activations on different blocks of State Street, getting the public involved, reporting back to MIG as well as the city how those things are working, because that will then possibly inform design characteristics moving forward, as well as a big part of that will be how bikes are integrated through that corridor and exactly where that corridor is.
And just to add, just when that economic recovery ordinance went into effect, because there's been different, it went from like an emergency ordinance to the economic recovery, and I forget, again, it's another 20-word name of the ordinance, but really the heaviest lift was just more than internally establishing the fire lane and then ADA, which, has been very resource intensive just for that. And I think as Mr. Bossy continues to work with the interim operations committee, that they, depending upon the topics, I think it will be decided when things are ripe for the community feedback, because just again, initially, it was just more of the implementation of those first two items.
And when are those ad hoc committee meetings, and can people see them, attend them, give public comment at them?
Another great question. They vary. There's no set routine. It's kind of on an as-needed basis, and they are not public. So the idea behind that is to generate just frank discussion with staff or whoever they need to talk to. So it's kind of a standard, as you know, government procedure. The ad hoc committees allow for more open-ended discussion.
Yeah, well, I'll just say, from my perspective, certainly not staff's fault. This is a question of political will and sort of fortitude. And so it's just unfortunate that these things, yes, they're happening. Of course, it's perfectly legal according to the Brown Act and all of that. But one, comes to the council, decisions aren't being made by that ad hoc committee, it's being punted. And so when it gets punted to the council, they're like, well, what'd you do? Did you guys do any outreach, or what's the deal? And people just don't have a sense. So, because I get hit up, because people know I'm on the committee, and they go, what's going on with State Street? I go, we can only work on a master plan. We've got this whole group of 15 people that are like, a beautiful rainbow of State Street, like interested parties and people are involved in the community, and it's like, it doesn't even come for any kind of discussion. It doesn't come to this committee, it doesn't come to all the other things. And so, trust me, I'm telling council members the same thing. It's not on you, but I just want to sort of put it out in the public that everybody got so kumbaya about State Street Advisory Committee, let's do it, we're going to do State Street right this time. And now all of this stuff sort of structurally is, I think, kind of wrong-footing us at the beginning, which is unfortunate. Hopefully we can pull out of it and kind of take a clearer path, but just want to put that out there because it's something that keeps coming up in the grocery store and things like that. So I just want to kind of air that out, and hopefully council will, I don't know, maybe do a little outreach or come up with a plan for the further steps that need to happen in this interim period. Thanks.
Can I ask a question? Is it all
No
right?
one's calling on people.
Is this the right time for questions in the process of this?
Yes, that's fine to take questions, and then what we'll do is after the end of program updates, we'll hold public comment.
Okay, thank you. I'm thoroughly confused by this ad hoc, you talk about an ad hoc committee. Is that a staff committee that's doing actual work, as opposed to the State Street Committee that Hillary's on and that's loaded with a lot of professional architects and people who understand design and business? This is two separate groups, correct?
You are correct, two separate groups. So the ad hoc subcommittee is made up of 3 council members, and they are charged with researching different issues or opportunities, whether it's, in this case, it's obviously interim operations on State Street, but they can have these for a whole host of other different topics of interest or issues of interest within the city. So it's a group of 3 city council members, and then we help them with whatever they have moving forward.
When you say we help them, you mean staff
We as in staff,
do
yes.
the
ma'am.
work to give them information that they need to make decisions?
They don't necessarily make decisions, they provide input, and then they then recommend possible outcomes to the city council.
I think what troubles me, because I applied for the State Streets Committee as well, but Hillary beat me out.
By one vote.
Oh, so nice to know. Committees, advisory committees are wonderful and they're important, but somebody needs to be doing real work. And I can't figure that out from everything that's being said. This group that, when I saw in the media, journalist presentations about it, there's going to be MIG, is that what you said? It's a consultants?
That's the consultant for the State Street Master Plan effort.
Right, so those are the people who actually put pencil to paper and design, and do the design work, do the real work. Is that correct?
Along with staff and community input. They don't just randomly go out and do things along their own. It's very public intensive and committee intensive as well.
My point is that as a citizen, I think that having professionals do the design work is crucially important, as long as the city council and advisory committee are seeing what's going on. But I'm a lot more comfortable if I know you've hired people who really know what they're doing about designing things. And if it's consulting, that's fine, but otherwise it kind of feels like there's a lot of chefs in the kitchen. Do you understand what I mean?
I
Like-
think I do. So the State Street Master Plan is just what you described as your ideal situation. Professionals leading a group, the State Street Master Plan group, the State Street Advisory Committee, and then incorporating what they're saying and hearing the public input. And again, this is going to be very outward facing and taking all sorts of input from the public over many, many months. So that is what's happening
what's
for the
gonna happen?
long-term situation
Okay.
as far as State Street's concerned. So what you just described as your ideal situation is exactly what's happening.
I hope so. Because otherwise it feels like with a committee, a really high-level advisory committee, if they're the ones that are trying to do all the work, nothing gets done because everybody's got a different opinion and everybody's probably got a great idea, but somebody's got to be really cooking the stew. So that's what the consultants are going to be here. Okay, thank you. That's it. That's for me. Sorry.
My ideal is not to have the professionals do everything and have, when you say the public, what you define that as all the business people that have the stores with parklets on State Street. That's what you defined it as. Did I understand that wrong? Because I have this dream vision of this, what the charrettes showed, you know, and I want a State Street like that, with that, where I want to go down and I want to hear music and I want to be able to sit and enjoy stuff. And that is not what is there now with the parklets. And then there's also, you know, there was Rob, I think, led the charge to do this really detailed survey of people. What is your vision of State Street? This was pre-pandemic. And there was tons of information on that, and he presented it and stuff. And now I hear that this is happening, you know, with all the restaurants and stuff, and their patrons. You're calling them the public. And it's like, I'm not a patron of a restaurant, and so I
Right.
don't think I'm ever going to get asked. And
So those are great and valid points. I really want to clear something up. Two different issues. So what I'm primarily working on is the interim operations that came into place when COVID hit. Mr. Dayton and the city worked really quickly and got businesses outside. That's our charge as downtown parking and some of transportation. That's the charge that we're leading. And so we are in discussions for the immediate future with the businesses who have these outdoor spaces. So your input, as you say, I want to be heard, that is going to be part of this larger master plan process. So that will happen. They are going throughout the community, not just downtown. They'll be on the Mesa, they'll be on the Riviera, they will be everywhere with their having workshops and things like that. So two totally different issues, and they're easy to get confused. So that's probably part of it, is master plan, long-term, interim operations, very short-term. And Jessica might have.
And just
more
to,
to add.
yes,
Thank you.
add, as
Very helpful.
when we were putting the request for proposals for the State Street Master Planning effort, because we're not starting anew, there has, as you alluded to, there was vision workshops, et cetera, so that all of that information was provided to all the potential consultant teams as background in order to write their scope of works as well. But it will be continue to be very robust on the master planning effort. And as you know, yes, business is just one of many stakeholders because it is that is our main street, and it's owned by our community for input.
thank you. That's great.
Yeah, and I just want to say, yeah, they are two different things, right? Which is weird and maybe not the best, but here we are, right? I do have full faith in the plan that is being developed with the State Street Advisory Committee, not just because I'm on it, right, but because the consultant is very competent. Lots of professionals, and the staff, Tess Harris and Timmy Bolton, who are the full-time city staff working on this, are extremely competent and are herding all these cats, getting all the information, and the public outreach will be something that I think will be more robust than probably pretty much anything that the city's done. In a lot of different ways, not just like take a survey on the internet, right? But come down and see this sort of pop-up setup. How does this feel? Intercept surveys and things like that. Workshops in person, workshops online in different languages, in neighborhoods, because in theory, people who live around town, if they don't go downtown right now, if they don't go down State Street, why not? Go find out, right? What can we do to get them there? So there will be, it's just beginning, like literally last week or on the 15th, we had our first meeting with the consultant as a committee. So it's still very early, but I do think it's going to be very robust and do a lot of heavy lifting, heavy work, and really hear what the public wants. But it is a longer term thing. So you're completely right that it's very confusing. So anyway, but yeah, thanks for clarifying that, and we'll see how it goes.
One additional question. So thank you for all the clarification, and I guess just to boil it down to what to keep an eye on for updates as this moves and evolves. Is this just from meeting minutes from the State Street Advisory Committee, or are there other places that you would recommend to keep for updates?
And again, to clarify, updates on what?
Yeah,
what
just
process?
progress, what the discussion is, just as it's all moving along.
As far as the master plan is concerned?
Master plan, or just the discussion and the various voices that come up, or projects or outreach efforts that are taking place.
So for the master plan, there's, I believe, if we haven't already, developing a website for that. You know, I should probably defer to Ms. Blackerby to give more
There's an
detailed
email
information.
list to sign up. If you just, well,
That's-
there's a new website, so who knows what the links are up to. But I think if you just search State Street Advisory Committee,
Yeah.
you'll find that, and there's a
Yeah.
way to get notices on
There'll be a,
whatever's coming up.
subscription list, and as we move forward, there will be certain, topic areas. I know that, we've been wanting to have, just with the board, a whole transportation theme one. So again, if there is something specific that we would want to draw your attention to, or to either participate as just a general public or a member of TCC, we'll certainly let you know of those opportunities as well.
And it is in the scope for the consultant, as part of the project, part of the planning project, to come to this committee at least once, maybe twice, to present and get input on whatever. So they'll be here at some point.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for this kind of robust discussion. I appreciate it very much, because as a member of this committee, when I talk with friends and neighbors and whatever, I get asked about all this stuff. And now I'm starting to get it, that it's kind of like we're remodeling the house, but we have to put the kitchen outside for a while we redo the whole place. Seriously, because it's like, well, now I get it, because you're talking about ADA modifications and drainage, right? That's going to be a big deal, and what was the other thing? Public safety, the rats and bikes and stuff like that. That's not very sexy. I mean, people are like wanting to see this beautiful new promenade, and you're talking about the nuts and bolts, and now I get it, that you're talking about two separate things. You're trying to keep the wheels on the car right now till we get the new Rolls-Royce built. Am I understanding it a little better? And so there's two different topics, right?
Those are some great analogies, yes. So we're trying to keep the wheels on the bus, and we're also trying to keep the kitchen, which is now in the backyard, in place and not falling apart.
Until we build the new kitchen.
Exactly.
Okay, that helps a lot, and because that's what comes up. Well, what are they gonna do? And it's really awful, it's really ugly, and what are they gonna do? And I said, well, they're gonna plan something different. Well, what's that gonna be? So if we can check it out, that'll be helpful.
And Chair Rodriguez, I think when
was
as we
Chair.
set for future agenda items, or if we have program updates or just blips, again, we once we're ready for like a full item, we will actually have a report in details. But I think also just to not confuse anybody that's watching, that, yeah, if we have an update, I can have a separate line for the interim operations and then a separate line for the master planning
Yeah.
effort, so it's not confused.
I think that's
yes.
terrific.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
So, thank you, Mr. Bossy, for that update. No, it's, and so I have two more updates. These are brief. I wanted to report on the active transportation program. So probably over the past 2 years, since we had the active transportation program cycle 5, which was in 2020, and as you know, one of our projects of the 4 that we submitted were successful with the cycle 5 monies. And then there was the cycle 5 potential for augmentation, which was a very high number, and the hopes, because there was 2 projects that were 1 point and 2 points away from receiving funding. And really the past 2 years have been sort of that emotional roller coaster. Is there going to be augmented funds or not? Because the Cliff Drive multi-use path and then all the various improvements in the west side were right in line with potentially receiving those augmented funds. So, and during these probably past 2 years, it's been augmentations on, augmentations off, and back again. So this summer, there was more discussions on that, and then a final direction. And basically at the state level, it was decided that all potential augmentation funds would go into cycle 6. When they held the workshops, and all of our jurisdictions attended, and we would have received augmented funds for Cliff and the West Side under cycle 5 if that was a scenario. But like us and many others, 2020 cost estimates versus 2022 cost estimates were significantly different. And because oftentimes these are multi-million-dollar projects, we were finding that the difference wasn't just $10,000. It was, in the $1 million marks. And so if they were to have moved forward with the cycle 5 augmentation, a lot of the agencies said, ooh, we're not sure if we could deliver it, knowing the costs have increased so significantly. So after lots of workshops, and input, it was decided those funds go into cycle 6. So we did resubmit, as you know, for the Cliff Drive multi-use path, and we also submitted for the west side for various improvement there for bike and ped active infrastructure, and then we had a rescope of our project on Milpa Street. So there were 434 applications submitted statewide. With this is again from every year that this program has started since 2014. We're in this 6th cycle, and every cycle is just beyond competitive. So there's the 1.6 billion available, which is a wonderful number to be talking about. That's the highest number to date. But as we continue this program, projects get more expensive, and these, a lot of the projects are in the millions of dollars. And so I'm not going to go into all the details, but there are certain pots of funding within that 1.6 billion. They do think that, again, they're just estimating. This is the California Transportation Commission staff thinking of probably once they get all the scores in. We won't know the scores until October of 2022. But if our scores are anything like they were before, and hopefully we even have a stronger application, I think we're well posed for funding in this cycle. But I hope to share some good news in October on that one. So that is, at least we have a conclusion of where the monies are officially going. And then I also wanted to provide an update for the Measure A grant program. The last time we went before the Transportation Circulation Committee was when we were applying for the grant spec. I think we had the October 2021 meeting with the grants being due shortly after that, somewhere around there. I lost track of time, but we were successful with 3 of the 5 applications, receiving $1.3 million. So again, this is a great, continues to be a great local source for our smaller infrastructure projects. So we are extremely thankful for those funds. For committee member Seeslog, I will just quickly recap what we got the funding for. So we got money towards the multi-use path extension project. So as you know, we completed construction on the Las Positas Modoc multi-use path. And we ended the path at Calle de los Amigos, which was the last intersection before going into the county. It's very weird. There's this little piece that's kind of a no man's land. And so that was removed from the scope because at the time the county did not have funding to do a multi-use path on the county's end. But now they have that funding. And so then basically we have this little no man's land. And so we did receive funding for that. This is just an image of kind of where that group of trees is, where the new path would pick up. And this is a little bit closer, but as you see the sort of the guardrail and tree there, that's roughly, and you can see from the difference of pavement, that's the county city jurisdiction line. And we're actually on the other side of those, I guess, trees on the left is a very deep ravine. Most of it's at grade, but there it's a very steep drop off. So that's what we're in design right now. We're actually going to be shifting the roadway slightly to avoid that and massive retaining walls. So we will be having to do some tree removals on the right-hand side that we have received approvals for from the Parks and Rec Commission. And so hope to be coordinating that for construction this fall with the county timing with their first phase. They're breaking up their project into a couple of phases, but the first one goes essentially from this area right at Via Cinda is the road. So if you were to get off on Las Positas and kind of the hook to go to Modoc Road, that's where their first phase begins, and then comes again to this where you see that change of pavement. And then that's just, again, that little red piece is that little tiny but very important connection. And that whole line is all part of the regional coastal route that even goes beyond to Ventura. So the whole goal is to make that for all ages and abilities. So a very critical route, not only locally, but regionally. And then the next one we received funding for was 2 intersection projects. It is Safe Routes to School. It is on San Andres Street at 2 intersections at Victoria in San Andres and Anapamu in San Andres. And to do curb extensions and rapid flashing beacons there. We do have grant funding for under the Highway Safety Program for San Andres and Sola. So it will be really nice to have 3 intersections, curb extensions, rapid flashing beacons, really to help facilitate families getting to and from school. There's in behind Bonnet Park, there's a lot of high density apartments where families cut through Bonnet Park and then onto Harding to get to school. So it's a very important crossing that we want to make sure, again, that kids get to and from school safely. And this is just one photo, again, of Victoria and Anapamu. So we'll be decreasing the crossing distance and exposure for those walking in the crosswalk. And we're very excited about that. And there will be lighting improvements as well. And same with this intersection as well. And on the left-hand side, if you go one more property over, that's the Boys and Girls Club. So again, big connection between the recreation and sources for after-school programs too. Of a lot of families use the Boys and Girls Club. So two very important intersections. So again, very thankful for that funding. And last but not least, another one, and one that we had recently, worked with Move SB on safety assessments, but it's the right in front of the junior high to put a multi-use path there. And so we received funding for that. So this was just one of the images again where we have a on-street bike lane, and then there's a Narnia, and there's nothing. Everybody is then back on the roadway. And so this actually is an image that's very benign. You come during a school drop-off session that is for bike commuters and kids getting to and from school. That is a very, a lot of chaos is happening. So, students, depending upon which direction you're heading, and basically right where you see the sidewalk right there. Oops, if I could do my mouse. This is the sidewalk. It will be widened on this side so we can preserve the nice mature trees in the parkway, and that will be the multi-use portion of it. So, and it would end, again, right, there's a class 1 path, off-street path on the other side of the school between Ortega Park and the junior high. So riders coming in from that path do not have to hop back onto Coda Street. They can now ride, they will be able to ride in the multi-use path to get right into the school. And then those commuters will be able to hop right back onto the lane to get into downtown destination. So very exciting. Yes, and that is it, Chair Malovos. With the updates, does anybody have any questions on those remaining ones? Yes.
I just I have a comment. I have to sit here and chuckle because that MODOC, the little mystery 500 feet, is right where I live. And that's right the fence of our condo association. And it's been the mystery question for a year. What, are we in the county project? Are we in the city project? So I'm very excited tonight. I'll take this back and share. So that's Arroyo Burro Creek. It's not just a ravine.
Right.
That's Arroyo Burro Creek goes under that bridge. So it's very tricky. There was a major amount of work done on that bridge to reinforce it, preparing for the county's part of that. So if you want to check it out, it's kind of crazy. But thank you very much.
What is the construction that's going on there right now? You said this isn't going to start because there's a whole construction area out beside the road right now.
So
Right at that area, by the, on one side of the ravine.
that would be part of probably the county starting to stage for their portion of it.
Okay. Got it.
No additional questions from me.
All right. So but before we adjourn, I just want to give you a preview for upcoming and October that's the last meeting of the year. But it's a very important meeting because we're already blink in a new capital programming year. We revisit it every 2 years. That's Committee Member Rodriguez. Just seeing your body language was our body language with me. How did 2 years already come up again? And But we have had a kickoff actually as of this week, and you will be seeing our streets transportation capital at the October meeting. So it is very crucial for the committee members to be present, because that will be an action item. And I know committee member Seeslag does already have a known conflict, but again, very important to at least have 4 for the quorum. And then maybe we might have a couple project updates with the Lower East Side Ped Bike Bridge, because we have been working now with the structural engineering team, and so hopefully have some updates for you on that. And then the Castillo undercrossing, that was another Measure A grant for planning concepts, and so that might be coming as well in October. So be prepared to have some snacks, or that might be a little longer meeting. All right. And then Chairman Lewis, when you're ready, we can adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn. All right. So is there a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
All right.